Elijah. During one of the worst periods of Israel, God called Elijah. In those times, Israel had one of the worst kings, and his name was Ahab. He was one of Israel's greatest prophets and was a Tishbite from Gilead in the Transjordan region. Kings covers more of his life than the majority of the kings themselves, despite the fact that there is no book written in his honor. His encounter with Baal's prophets on Mount Carmel made him most famous. King Ahab has incorporated idolism into a system that was supposed to be run on God's agenda because the Israelites were his people. Israel was suffering as a result of poor governance. But Elijah, on the other hand, represented a different kind of dominion. He had no connections to either the political establishment or the royal family. He had the ability to tell the truth to earthly power without being co-opted or corrupted. Elijah was a bold person who spoke up for the truth no matter who was in charge. He represented a totally different kingdom with a very different objective. Elijah seemed to have reached the pinnacle of life's adventures, heroic almost beyond belief, yet humble of heart. But he was about to outdo them all. He was about to avoid death. Elijah's deathless departure places him in the scarce category of deathless departures. Although we are never told when or how God did this, it is clear from the context that he informed Elijah of his impending departure. God revealed it to the sons of the prophets as well as Elisha, the old prophet's close friend and divinely chosen successor, as we shall see. 2 Kings 2, verses 1 to 12. When the Lord was about to take Elijah up to heaven in a whirlwind, Elijah and Elisha were on their way from Gilgal. We have arrived at Elijah's last day on earth, when he will be carried up in a whirlwind. The Hebrew here can also be translated in a gust, in a windy moment. In some sweeping movement, Elijah would be caught up, and in that instant, he would be gone from this earth into God's presence. Now God had not only told Elijah that this would happen, and how it would happen, he also had told him where it would happen. This explains why we see Elijah moving quickly toward the Jordan. As you read the narrative, imagine the scene as it unfolds. 2 Kings 2, verses 2 to 6, Amplified Bible. And Elijah said to Elisha, "Please stay here, for the Lord has sent me to Bethel." But Elisha replied, "As the Lord lives and as your soul lives, I will not leave you." So they went down to Bethel. Now the sons of the prophets who were at Bethel came out to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that the Lord will take your master away from you today?" He said, "Yes, I know it. Be quiet about it." Elijah said to him, "Elisha, please stay here, for the Lord has sent me to Jericho." But he said, "As the Lord lives and as your soul lives, I will not leave you." So they came to Jericho. The sons of the prophets who were at Jericho approached Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that the Lord will take your master away from you today?" And he answered, "Yes, I know it. Be quiet about it." Elijah said to him, "Please stay here, for the Lord has sent me to the Jordan." But he said, "As the Lord lives and as your soul lives, I will not leave you." So the two of them went on. The sons of the prophets asked Elisha the same question in both Bethel and Jericho. "Do you know that the Lord will take away your master from over you today?" Elisha responded the same way both times. "Yes, I know. Now please be quiet." Gilgal was the starting point. According to Joshua 4, Gilgal was the location of the children of Israel's camp after crossing the Jordan into Canaan. If you recall your biblical history, this was the point at which they were still safe and secure, just before they began their invasion into enemy territory. Gilgal was the starting point for Elijah's last journey. The next stop for Elijah was Bethel, a place of prayer. Bethel means God's house. Finally, Elijah went to the Jordan, which was a place of death, not just physical death, but also death of the self-life. Elisha said to Elijah, as he arrived at the Jordan, his final earthly destination, "As the Lord lives, I will not leave you." Elijah had been attempting to distance himself from Elisha since Gilgal. I don't think he was trying to get rid of Elisha so much as he was putting his close companion, his future successor, to the test. When the two men came to a halt at the Jordan, the scene abruptly changed. Now comes the miraculous event. 2 Kings 2, verses 7 to 10, Amplified Bible. 50 men of the sons of the prophets also went and stood opposite them to watch at a distance, and the two of them stood by the Jordan. And Elijah took his mantle, coat, and rolled it up, and struck the waters, and they were divided this way and that, so that the two of them crossed over on dry ground. And when they had crossed over, Elijah said to Elisha, "Ask what I shall do for you before I am taken from you." And Elisha said, "Please, let a double portion of your spirit be upon me." He said, "You have asked for a difficult thing. However, if you see me when I am taken from you, it shall be so for you. But if not, it shall not be so." This is similar to the miracle that occurred centuries ago when God miraculously parted the Red Sea, allowing Moses and the children of Israel to walk across on dry land. In this case, the Jordan's waters parted, allowing Elijah and Elisha to cross the river on dry land. Then Elijah turns to his friend and asks, "What can I do for you before I go, before the Lord takes me from this earth?" 2 Kings 2, verse 11, Amplified Bible. As they continued along and talked, behold, a chariot of fire with horses of fire appeared suddenly and separated the two of them, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. That's fantastic. They were walking together and talking. Elijah was not preaching or prophesying at the time. It was just the two close friends walking and talking together. That must have been a fantastic moment. A chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind, the Bible says. Just like that, he was up to heaven in a whirlwind, in an instant. 2 Kings 2 verses 12 to 15, Amplified Bible. Elisha saw it and cried out, my father, the chariot of Israel and its horsemen," and he no longer saw Elijah. Then he took hold of his own clothes and tore them into 2 pieces in grief. He picked up the mantle of Elijah that fell off him and went back and stood by the bank of the Jordan. He took the mantle of Elijah that fell from him and struck the waters and said, "Where is the Lord, the God of Elijah?" And when he too had struck the waters, they divided this way and that, and Elisha crossed over. When the sons of the prophets who were watching opposite at Jericho saw him, they said, "The spirit of Elijah rests on Elisha." And they came to meet him and bowed down to the ground before him in respect. Elijah's no-death contract suddenly went into effect. Nothing of God dies when a man or woman of God dies. We tend to forget this. Elisha is a prime example, and God always has a plan. Consider this. He has had his men and women in every era to carry on his work throughout the ages. God has never been frustrated, wondering, what will my people do now that he's gone, now that he's not with them anymore? Our Creator God is all-powerful, and he is never caught short on supplies. Elisha was taken aback and startled for a brief moment, but this did not last long. He reached down and picked up the prophet's cloak, recalling Elijah's words. He crossed back over the Jordan, claiming the power that was now his, and began his own prophetic ministry from that point forward. God's plan never faltered. Exit Elijah, enter Elisha.